Hi everybody, Michael Campbell here. I'm at the 2017 Canadian Science Policy Conference, and sitting with me today is Urs Obrist. He is the Senior Science and Technology Counselor at the Embassy of Switzerland in Canada. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How are you enjoying the conference so far?
Very much so. A lot of high-level people. It's very interesting to listen to the panels and keynote speakers.
Yeah. So one thing you're involved with is something called SwissNex. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about its model and its goals?
Yeah, so SwissNex is what we call kind of a new innovation when it comes to science diplomacy. The first one was established in the year 2000 in Boston. It's basically a scientific consulate which helps showcase Swiss achievements in science, Swiss excellence. Historically, it has been closely connected with universities. Nowadays, they have reach-out programs. They showcase startups, innovators from various walks of life, and just to show that Switzerland is a land of innovators. You may know that Switzerland, over the course of the past 7 years, has actually been world's leading innovator according to the INSEAD World Intellectual Property Organization Index. So we're very proud of that, and we think we should showcase that around the world. And we actually have 5 of those SwissNex offices nowadays. So Boston was the start. We have another one in the US in San Francisco, and then one in Rio de Janeiro, one in Bangalore in India, and one in Shanghai.
Are they regional, or are there plans to make more?
That's a very good question. There has been a prior SwissNex, which was in place for 11 years in Singapore, but that closed after it had fulfilled its function. And then there was a discussion in Switzerland about opening more of those because they were very popular. But they're really organized according to needs-based, and at this point the government basically said 5 is a good number. And on top of these SwissNex offices, there's a network of science and technology counselors, such as myself. There's 20 of us around the world, Chile, Australia, you name it, and we kind of assist and cooperate with those SwissNex offices.
And were there any specific Canada 150 programs that you guys did?
Yeah, we had various Swiss-Canadian related events this year. We emphasized the Swiss-Canadian Innovation Days. Earlier this year we had one on personalized medicine. And there was another one on excellence in neuroscience research. That was kind of to showcase collaboration between McGill University and the Zurich Neuroscience Center and Oxford University. And just last week here in Ottawa we had a Swiss-Canadian Innovation Day on autonomous vehicles, focusing mainly on the technological side and possible solutions.
So it sounds like the relationship between Canada and Switzerland are pretty good. Do you think maybe you could talk about the relationship with research, science, and innovation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for the bilateral relationship between Switzerland and Canada, science, education, research, and innovation plays an important role. We are not part of NATO, we are not part of the G7, but I think in those fields, scientific and innovation fields, we think there's a lot of potential for cooperation. Switzerland and Canada, as you know, are very similar when it comes to federalism, multilingualism, kind of similar political outlook, same culture in many respects. So I would say they're natural partners, but oftentimes the idea gets lost or forgotten compared to other opportunities.
For sure. So what have been some of the rewards of the effort that you and SwissNex have put in the past 4 years?
I think, without false modesty, we can say we have helped put Switzerland a little bit more on the map here in Canada, and vice versa. Part of my job is actually putting Canada and Switzerland on the map as well. As I said, Switzerland oftentimes looks first and foremost towards the US. But when we look, for example, at the rankings of the universities, amongst the top 200, there's 7 Swiss universities there, there's 7 Canadian universities amongst the top 200. So there's a lot of parallel developments, and I think we managed to reach more visibility for the Swiss institutions, and we have worked on a joint statement on science and technology, which is basically ready to be signed, and hopefully if everything falls in place, will be signed early in 2018.
And you have a relationship with some Canadian universities and others worldwide in an Antarctic expedition?
Yeah, I mean, just as an add-on to your previous question, one of the big events this year actually was the acceptance of Switzerland as a member of the Arctic Council. We have observer status there. And last year we organized the Swiss-Canadian Innovation Day on polar research. And the initiative for that day actually came through the start of this Antarctic circumnavigation expedition, which was basically a project by the Swiss Polar Institute. And we had a Canadian research group from the University of Laval on board as well. And this was very exemplary to have this kind of scientific collaboration. For Switzerland, if you look at climate change, the effects of a warming Earth are very strong in the Alps. And historically, we have a very strong research capacity when it comes to glaciology and permafrost research. But what we do not have is access to the Arctic. So in this kind of circumstance, we had a good symbiotic collaboration. We applied for the Arctic Council under the premise that we can provide a lot of scientific know-how. And our interest was to get into the Arctic Council as a member to get more access to research areas within the Arctic environment as well. And that's, I would argue, a paradigmatic example of collaboration in science diplomacy. So both diplomacy helping science to be part of this group, but also science for diplomacy in the context of climate change discussions.
And you are a teacher and you're very passionate about it. You've taught in Canada, Switzerland, and Spain. How would you say the application of science policy and diplomacy differs?
Mm-hmm. Well, I only lived in Spain for 2 years, so I cannot really speak to the environment there in a very profound manner. But I think when it comes to science policy in Canada, there's a strong movement, obviously now with a new science advisor, to give science a higher visibility. We don't have this kind of institution in Switzerland of a science advisor, but obviously all the ministries within themselves have very strong sections that deal with scientific questions and try to answer their challenges by way of evidence provided by scientists. So it's definitely there. Yeah, I don't know, is there...
Looking at Canada, how would you say it ranks?
That's kind of hard to say. I think when it comes specifically to science diplomacy, we just had a panel discussing that there's definitely more room, I think, for Canada to put itself a little bit more on the map internationally, to say diplomacy also entails a strong scientific component. As far as I know, there's not this specific position of science counselors outside of Canada for Canadian embassies, but I may stand corrected. So I think that would be maybe an opportunity if Canada is interested in going that way. But overall, as I said, like the research capacity of the universities is known, and you certainly don't have anything to hide about that.
Yeah. Do you have any educational programs or conferences that you're organizing that are coming up?
That's a good question, actually. Every 2 years, the Swiss State Secretariat for Education, Research and Innovation is organizing a conference, an international congress on vocational, professional education and training. You may have heard about the World Skills competition that was just held in Abu Dhabi, and Switzerland did really well there. And so this conference is kind of, again, to help exchange knowledge in the area of professional education and training. Switzerland is very proud of its programs in that area. Youth unemployment, we deem, is very low because of our very strong programming in professional education and training. And so this conference next June in Winterthur near Zurich will actually showcase Swiss professional education and training, but will allow for networking. And I've already been in contact with Canadian schools, polytechnics, CEGEPs, to participate in that congress to, again, share knowledge, exchange knowledge. That's really what the conference is about.
And strengthen our relationship.
Exactly, absolutely. Yeah, that's part and parcel of my job, obviously, to strengthen bilateral relations. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. Why don't you tell the folks at home where they can find out more about you and the things you do?
Yeah, okay, so the Embassy of Switzerland is based here in Ottawa, not too far here from the Shaw Centre. We are on 5 Marlborough Avenue. There's a Facebook website if you want to like us on that one. If not, you can just contact us. All the information is provided on the website of the Embassy of Switzerland in Canada.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you too. Thanks for having me.